The stars had never looked so threatening. Commander Cole stood at the observation deck of the Mars defense platform, his coffee growing cold in his hands. He had served in the military for 23 years. He had seen conflicts on distant moons and skirmishes in asteroid belts, but nothing had prepared him for what filled his now. The fleet stretched across space like a metal ocean. 40,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built for public display. They hung in the darkness beyond Jupiter, their hulls gleaming with alien technology that human scientists could barely understand. And they were waiting. Lieutenant Maya Torres walked up beside him, her tablet clutched against her chest. She was young, barely 30, but her eyes held the same weight that felt in his bones. She had seen the numbers. She knew what they were facing. "The transmission is coming through on all frequencies," she said quietly. "Every screen on Earth, Mars, and the colonies. They want everyone to see this." Nodded slowly, put it on the main display. The screen flickered and a face appeared. It was not human. The creature called itself Admiral, leader of the Dominion. His skin was pale blue, stretched tight over a skull that was too long and too narrow. His eyes were black pools that reflected no light. When he spoke, his voice was smooth and cold, like ice sliding over stone. "People of Earth," the alien began, "I am Admiral of the Dominion. We represent a coalition of 12 civilizations that have watched your species crawl out of your small world and spread across the stars. We have studied you. We have learned your history. We know what you are." Felt his jaw tighten. Around him, the crew had stopped moving. Every eye was fixed on the screen. "Your species is young," continued. "You are aggressive, violent, and unpredictable. You fight among yourselves constantly. Your history is written in blood and fire. You destroyed your own planet with pollution and war before you even reached the stars. And now you have committed an unforgivable act." The screen showed images of a human mining colony on a distant world called 442b. The miners had been digging for rare metals when they accidentally broke through into an underground chamber. Inside, they found thousands of preserved alien bodies, arranged in careful rows. They had disturbed a burial ground, a sacred place that the Dominion had protected for 10,000 years. "This violation cannot be forgiven," said, "but we are not cruel. We do not wish to destroy you completely. We offer you a choice." The alien leaned forward, his black eyes seeming to stare directly at every human watching. "You have 6 standard hours to surrender. You will dismantle your military forces. You will accept permanent supervision by the Dominion. Your species will serve us, work for us, and obey us. In return, we will allow you to live." He paused, letting his words sink in. "If you do not surrender, we will we will burn your colonies. We will hunt down every human vessel in the galaxy. Your species will end and the universe will forget you ever existed. You have 6 hours. Choose wisely." The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one on the platform spoke, could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. 6 hours. The alien had given humanity 6 hours to decide its fate. Maya broke the silence first. "Sir, our sensors are showing the full size of their fleet. 42,000 warships, 12,000 fighter carriers, 800 planet-killer class vessels." Her voice shook slightly. "Our public defense fleet has maybe 300 combat-ready ships." "I know," said. "They'll slaughter us." Turned to look at her. There was something in his eyes that she had never seen before. It was not fear. It was not despair. If anything, it looked almost like anticipation. "Maya," he said slowly, "how long have you been stationed here?" 4 years, sir." "And in those 4 years, have you ever wondered why the United Earth government spends so much money on black budget projects? Have you ever wondered where all those resources go? Have you ever wondered why we have mining operations in places that don't seem to have anything worth mining?" Maya frowned. "I assumed it was corruption, waste, the usual government problems." almost smiled. That's what everyone assumes. That's what we want everyone to assume. He walked to his command console and entered a code that Maya had never seen before. The screen changed, showing a new display marked with symbols she did not recognize. There's a reason to think they can beat us with just 6 hours of warning. They've been watching us for decades. They've seen our public military. They've counted our ships, measured our weapons, studied our tactics. And they have no idea what they're actually facing. Pressed another button. Across human space, in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, encrypted terminals began to light up. A single phrase was being transmitted on frequencies that no alien could detect. Prometheus wakes. On Europa, beneath miles of ice, Admiral Ben Harper received the message in a command center that did not exist on any official record. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but when he read those 2 words, he stood up than he had in years. "It's time," he said to his crew. "Wake up the Shadow Fleet." On Earth, President was already addressing the United Nations, but there was no panic in the chamber. No shouting, no arguments, no chaos. The representatives listened in silence as she spoke. "We have prepared for this day for 60 years, she said. "We knew that eventually, some species would decide that humanity was too dangerous to exist. We knew they would come with overwhelming force, expecting us to crumble. We have let them believe we are weak. We have hidden our true strength. And now, it is time to show them what humanity really is." The vote was unanimous. The ancient protocols were activated. Back on the Mars platform, watched his sensors begin to change. New signatures were appearing throughout the solar system, emerging from places where nothing should exist. Ships were powering up in the asteroid belt, in the rings of Saturn, in the shadows of distant moons. "Sir," Maya whispered, her face pale, "what is all this?" Turned to face the alien fleet in the distance. They sat there in the darkness, confident and patient, waiting for humanity to surrender or collapse. "That," he said quietly, "is the real human military, the one we've been building in secret since the day we made first contact." He looked at his crew, seeing the hope beginning to kindle in their eyes. "They gave us 6 hours because they think we need that long to fall apart. They're about to learn that we don't need hours. We need minutes." The countdown had begun, and humanity was ready. Admiral Ben Harper had lived his entire adult life waiting for this moment. He stood in the heart of the most secret facility in human history, buried deep beneath the frozen surface of Europa. The ice above him was 12 miles thick. The only way in or out was through tunnels that could be collapsed with the push of a button. For 15 years, he had commanded this place, and for 15 years, he had prayed that he would never have to use it. Now that prayer had been answered with a no. Around him, the command center hummed with activity. Screens covered every wall, showing ship positions, weapon status, and troop readiness. Officers moved between stations, their voices calm and professional despite what was coming. They had trained for this. They had run simulations. They knew exactly what to do. Lieutenant Chris Wade approached with a tablet in his hands. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes and a mind like a computer. He had memorized the position of every ship in the Shadow Fleet. "Admiral, all 218 carrier groups are reporting green. Full combat readiness in 12 minutes. Harper nodded slowly. "And the weapon systems?" "Quantum torpedoes are charged. Lances are calibrated. The swarm missiles are ready for deployment." Chris paused. "Sir, we have enough firepower to crack a planet. Multiple planets, actually." "I know." Harper walked to the central display, where a holographic image of the solar system floated in blue light. Red dots marked the position of the fleet. They were clustered beyond Jupiter, arranged in a traditional formation that alien strategists had used for thousands of years. It was a formation designed to intimidate, to show overwhelming force. It was also a formation that made them perfect targets. "They have been studying us for 60 years, Harper said. "They watched our world wars. They saw our nuclear weapons. They analyzed our military doctrine and concluded that we are a primitive, violent species that spends most of its energy fighting itself. He turned to face his crew. They made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity has ever made. They saw our conflicts and thought we were weak. They didn't understand that those conflicts are how we train. On Earth, President was finishing her address to the United Nations. The Great Hall was silent, every representative listening with total attention. There were no protests, no debates, no political games. For the first time in human history, every nation was united in purpose. "We did not seek this war," said. "We did not provoke it. We have spent 60 years building relationships with other species, trading peacefully, exploring the galaxy without aggression. But we always knew this day might come. We knew that some power would look at humanity and see a threat to be eliminated." She stood tall, her voice carrying across the chamber. "So while we smiled and traded and played the role of the young, naive species, we were also building. We were preparing. We constructed shipyards in places no one would think to look. We developed weapons that make our public military look like children's toys. We trained soldiers in facilities that don't exist on any map." The representatives began to understand. The years of mysterious budget allocations, the secret projects, the resources that seemed to disappear into nothing. It had all been leading to this moment. "Today, we reveal what humanity truly is," concluded. "Not a weak species waiting to be conquered, but a people who remember their history, who learned from their mistakes, and who will never, ever allow themselves to be enslaved." Back in the flagship, Admiral was pleased with himself. He sat in his command chair, surrounded by officers who had served him for decades. The walls of his bridge were decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, skulls and flags and weapons taken from species that had once thought themselves powerful. Soon, he would add human artifacts to his collection. "Report," he said. His intelligence officer stepped forward. "The human governments are responding as predicted, Admiral. They have convened emergency meetings across their planet. Their communication channels are flooded with panic and confusion. Their public military forces are scrambling, but they have no coordinated response." "Excellent," allowed himself a thin smile. "Humans are emotional creatures. They will spend the next 6 hours arguing among themselves about what to do. By the time they reach any decision, the deadline will have passed. Some of our analysts believe the humans may attempt a surprise attack," another officer said. Laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. "With what? 300 patrol ships against 40,000 warships. Let them try. It would save us the trouble of hunting them down later." He turned to gaze out at the stars. Somewhere in the distance, the human floated in space, blue and green and fragile. Such a small planet to produce such troublesome creatures. But soon, it would be nothing but ash and memory. "The humans have never faced a real enemy," said. "They have only fought themselves. They do not understand what true military power looks like. They do not understand that in the face of overwhelming force, resistance is simply suicide with extra steps." What did not know was that, at that very moment, human warships were emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. They came from inside hollowed-out asteroids. They rose from beneath the clouds of gas giants. They powered up in the permanent shadows of distant moons where sunlight never reached. The Shadow Fleet was awakening. Commander stood on the bridge of the Quiet Thunder, a ship specifically designed for electronic warfare. She was 38 years old, a genius with computers, and she had spent the last decade perfecting a weapon that didn't fire a single shot. "The virus is ready," she said into her communicator. "Whisper is active and waiting for the signal." For 20 years, human diplomats had visited worlds. They had attended conferences, signed treaties, and exchanged cultural information. And during every single visit, they had planted pieces of a computer virus so sophisticated that even the best programmers could not detect it. The virus had spread through their networks, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment it would be activated. That moment was almost here. On the Mars platform, Cole watched his tactical display transform. Where before there had been only a handful of blue dots representing human ships, now there were thousands. The Shadow Fleet was taking position, spreading out in a pattern that would allow them to strike from every direction at once. 42 minutes since the ultimatum, Maya said. They gave us 6 hours. Nodded, and they're about to learn why that was a mistake. He opened a channel to all human ships. His voice was steady, calm, and filled with absolute certainty. All ships, this is Commander Cole. You know your targets. You know your orders. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember what they threatened to do to our families, our children, our species. He paused. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. Today, we end this war. The ships began to move. The fleet sat in the darkness, blind and confident, unaware that death was coming for them at the speed of light. The countdown reached 0. And humanity attacked. The first thing they lost was their ability to see. Commander pressed a single button on her console, and 20 years of patient preparation came to life. The Whisper virus activated simultaneously across every system in the alien fleet. It moved through their computers like water through sand, silent and impossible to stop. In 17 seconds, 40,000 warships went completely blind. Phase 1 complete, reported. Their sensors are down, communications are down, navigation is down, they're floating in the dark. On the flagship, chaos erupted. Admiral rose from his command chair as every screen around him went black. Warning lights flashed red. Officers shouted at each other, trying to understand what had happened. The smooth, confident atmosphere of moments ago had shattered like glass. "What is happening?" demanded. "Report." "Admiral, our systems are failing," his technical officer stammered. "Some kind of virus, it's everywhere, we can't stop it." "Restore our sensors, now." "We're trying, Admiral, but the virus is adapting. Every time we block it, it changes." Felt something he had not experienced in centuries of warfare. He felt fear. Without sensors, his fleet was helpless. Without communications, he could not coordinate his ships. Without navigation, they could not even move in formation. "How long until you can restore basic functions?" he asked. "I don't know, Admiral. Minutes, maybe, hours." They did not have hours. They did not even have minutes. The human ships came out of the darkness like ghosts. They had been moving into position while they were still confident, still laughing at the idea of human resistance. Now they appeared on all sides, above and below, in front and behind. The Shadow Fleet surrounded the alien armada like wolves circling wounded prey. On the bridge of the Defiant, Cole watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The ships were scattered red dots, motionless and helpless. The human fleet was a ring of blue, weapons charged and ready. "All ships report ready, Commander," Maya said. Her voice was steady now, her earlier fear replaced by determination. "Awaiting your order." "Open the fleet-wide channel. This is Commander Cole to all ships. Fire at will." The universe exploded. Quantum torpedoes were humanity's most terrifying weapon. They did not travel through normal space. They simply appeared inside their targets, bypassing shields and armor as if they did not exist. In the first 3 seconds of the attack, over 2,000 warships simply came apart from the inside. The Lances were next. These weapons manipulated gravity itself, creating crushing forces that no material could withstand. Alien cruisers crumpled like paper balls. Carriers folded in half. The massive planet-killer ships that they had been so proud of twisted into unrecognizable shapes before breaking apart. And then came the swarm missiles. Each human carrier ship launched millions of tiny missiles, each one guided by its own artificial intelligence. They spread through the alien fleet like a metal plague, seeking out any ship that still showed signs of power. The missiles worked together, communicating with each other, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm point defense systems that were not even active. Admiral stood on his bridge and watched his fleet die. Through a viewport that still functioned, he could see the destruction all around him. Ships that had served him for decades were now nothing but expanding clouds of debris. Officers who had celebrated their easy victory just minutes ago were now screaming into dead communication systems, begging for help that would never come. "This is impossible," whispered. "We studied them. We knew their capabilities. They had nothing that could challenge us." His tactical officer managed to restore sensors for just a moment. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Admiral, the human fleet, it's massive. Thousands of ships, technologies we've never seen before." "Where did they come from?" "I don't know, Admiral, but they're everywhere." A quantum torpedo appeared in the engine room of the flagship. The ship shuddered and began to break apart. Had just enough time to realize how completely he had underestimated humanity before the vacuum of space claimed him. The battle lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds. When it was over, not a single warship remained intact. 40,000 vessels had been reduced to debris fields stretching across millions of miles. The greatest armada in galactic history had been annihilated in less time than it took to make a cup of coffee. Human losses were zero. On the Mars platform, Cole stared at his display in silence. He had known the plan. He had trained for this. But seeing it happen, seeing the complete and total destruction of an enemy fleet, was something else entirely. "All targets eliminated," Maya reported. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "No surviving enemy ships detected." "Confirmed," another officer added. "The fleet has been destroyed, 100% casualties." Let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. "Contact Admiral Harper. Tell him Phase 1 is complete." Deep beneath Europa, Ben Harper received the message with a grim nod. The first part of humanity's response had succeeded beyond their wildest projections. But the war was not over. The Dominion still existed. They were still intact. Their other fleets were still active. If humanity stopped now, the Dominion would simply rebuild and return, this time with more ships and better preparations. That could not be allowed to happen. "Initiate Phase 2, Harper ordered. "All strike groups, execute jump protocols. It's time to bring this war to their doorstep." Across human space, ships began to activate jump drives that the alien species did not know existed. The technology had been developed in secret, tested in hidden corners of the galaxy, and kept ready for exactly this situation. In the blink of an eye, human warships vanished from the solar system and reappeared over worlds. On the quiet Thunder watched as her ship jumped across light years in an instant. One moment she was in the solar system. The next, she was orbiting an alien planet, its cities glowing on the night side below. "Jump successful," her navigator reported. "We're in position over Prime." Nodded, "Open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves." The message that broadcast to every screen on the alien world was simple. It showed the debris field that had once been the mightiest fleet in history. It showed human warships now orbiting their planet, weapons charged and ready. And it delivered a message that would change the galaxy forever. "Your fleet has been destroyed," the message said. "You gave us 6 hours. We used 40 minutes. We could destroy your civilization in the time remaining. Instead, we offer you a choice. Surrender or share your fleet's fate." The war had entered its final phase. The people of Prime had been celebrating. When Admiral's fleet departed for the human solar system, the entire planet had watched with pride. Millions gathered in public squares to see the broadcast of the ultimatum. Children were let out of schools early. Businesses closed so workers could witness what everyone believed would be the greatest moment in Dominion history. The annoying human species would finally be put in its place. Then the human ships appeared in their sky. Was a teacher in one of the capital's largest schools. She was outside with her students, all of them watching the sky where they expected to see victory announcements at any moment. Instead, she saw lights appear out of nothing. Dozens of them, then hundreds, then thousands. "What is that?" one of her students asked. Could not answer. She could only stare as massive vessels materialized above her city. They were angular and aggressive, covered in weapons that looked like nothing she had ever seen, and they were everywhere, not just above the capital but across the entire planet. Every major city, every military base, every government facility now had human warships hovering above them. The screens that had been showing celebrations suddenly went black. A moment later, a new image appeared. It showed a field of debris stretching across space, twisted metal and shattered hulls floating in the void. The words beneath the image were in perfect script. "This was your fleet." The next image showed a human woman in a military uniform. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something that made blood run cold. It was the look of a predator that had already won. "Your armada has been destroyed," the woman said. Her voice was translated flawlessly into the language. 42,000 ships, 0 survivors. The attack took less than 4 minutes. Across the planet, silence fell. The celebrating crowd stood frozen, their cheers dying in their throats. This had to be some kind of mistake, some kind of trick. Their fleet was the mightiest in the galaxy. It could not have been destroyed so quickly, so completely. "You gave humanity 6 hours to surrender," the woman continued. "We have used 40 minutes. Our ships now orbit all 12 of your. We have enough firepower to turn your civilization to ash. Every city, every factory, every home." Pulled her students close, her hearts pounding with terror. She looked up at the warships hanging in her sky like dark clouds promising a terrible storm. "But we are not here to destroy you," the woman said. "We are here to offer you a choice. Surrender now, unconditionally, and your people will live. Continue to resist, and you will share the fate of your fleet." The broadcast ended. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Danny stood on the bridge of the Silent Fury, watching the alien planet below. His strike group had been assigned to Prime, the heart of the Dominion. If the enemy was going to resist, this is where they would make their stand. "Any response from the surface?" he asked. His communications officer shook her head. "Nothing yet, Commander. Their defense platforms are still active, but they haven't fired." Danny nodded. He understood their hesitation. They were warriors. They had conquered dozens of species. Surrender was not in their nature, but they were also logical. They could see the human ships in their sky. They could calculate the odds, and they knew that if they fought, they would lose. "The other strike groups are reporting similar situations," the officer continued. "All 12 are surrounded. Local defense forces are standing down across the board." "They're trying to decide what to do," Danny said. "Give them time, but keep weapons locked just in case." On Europa, Admiral Ben Harper watched the situation unfold on his tactical display. 12 worlds, 12 strike groups. Humanity had achieved in minutes what should have taken years of conventional warfare. The Dominion's entire military structure had been either destroyed or neutralized. They were defenseless. "Admiral," his aide said, "we're receiving a transmission from Prime. It's the Dominion Council." Harper straightened his uniform, put it through. The screen flickered, and a group of aliens appeared. They were the leaders of the 12 civilizations that made up the Dominion. Some were, with their pale blue skin and black eyes. Others were different species, with scales or fur or features that had no human equivalent. But they all wore the same expression. It was the look of beings who had just realized that everything they believed was wrong. The lead spoke. His voice was heavy with defeat. "Admiral Harper, we are the Dominion Council. We have seen the destruction of our fleet. We have seen your ships above our worlds." He paused as if the next words were physically painful to say. "We accept your terms. The Dominion surrenders unconditionally." Harper felt something release in his chest. relief, satisfaction, and something else, something that might have been pity. These beings had thought they were the masters of the galaxy. They had looked at humanity and seen an easy target. Now they were discovering what happened when that target turned out to be the most dangerous predator in the universe. "Your surrender is accepted," Harper said. "You will power down all weapons, ground all military vessels, and prepare to receive human occupation forces. Any resistance will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. Is that understood?" "Yes, Admiral, we understand." The transmission ended. Around the galaxy, word of the surrender spread. The greatest coalition of alien civilizations had been defeated in less than an hour. Their unbeatable fleet had been annihilated in minutes. And humanity, the young species that everyone had dismissed as primitive and weak, had revealed itself to be something far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. On Earth, President received the news in the United Nations chamber. The representatives around her sat in stunned silence. They had known about the Shadow Fleet. They had known about the plan. But hearing that it had worked, that humanity had actually won, was something else entirely. "The war is over," she announced. "The Dominion has surrendered. Our people are safe." For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the applause began. It built and built until the entire chamber was filled with the sound of humans celebrating their survival. They had faced extinction and triumphed. They had been given 6 hours to fall, and they had concluded the war in 36 minutes. But knew that the real work was just beginning. Defeating the Dominion was only the first step. Now, humanity had to decide what kind of power they wanted to be. Would they become conquerors, ruling the galaxy through fear? Or would they find another way? The answer to that question would shape the future of every species in the known universe. The flagship Morning Star was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It stretched for 3 miles from bow to stern, a mountain of metal and weapons that could destroy planets with a single shot. For 60 years, it had waited in the darkness of deep space, hidden from every alien sensor, maintained by crews who knew they might never see it used. Now it hung in Earth's orbit, visible to the entire world, a symbol of humanity's true power. President stood in the ship's great hall, watching as alien diplomats filed through the massive doors. They came from all 12 civilizations of the former Dominion. They were with their pale skin and dark eyes, now empty of their former arrogance. There were tall, scaled creatures from the desert world of. There were small, furry beings from the ocean planet of. All of them walked with their heads low, defeated and humbled. Admiral Ben Harper stood beside, his uniform crisp and his expression hard. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Now that it had arrived, he felt not triumph but a deep, tired satisfaction. The war was over. His people were safe. That was all that mattered. "They look smaller in person," said quietly. "They are smaller," Harper replied. "They just didn't know it until now." The aliens took their places at a long table that had been set up in the center of the hall. Human officers lined the walls, watching in silence. Camera drones floated overhead, broadcasting the event to every screen on Earth and beyond. The entire galaxy was watching. Stepped forward to address the gathering. Her voice was calm and measured, carrying the weight of a species that had just proven itself the most dangerous force in the known universe. 3 hours ago, you gave humanity an ultimatum. You told us we had 6 hours to surrender or face extinction. You assembled the largest fleet in galactic history and brought it to our doorstep. You were confident that we would crumble, argue among ourselves, and ultimately submit to your will. She paused, letting her words hang in the air. You were wrong. The alien diplomats shifted uncomfortably. Some could not meet her gaze. Others stared at the table in front of them, unable to look at the human woman who had orchestrated their defeat. In 36 minutes, we destroyed your fleet, every ship, every fighter, every soldier you sent against us. We then appeared over you with enough firepower to end your civilizations entirely. We could have done it. We could have turned your planets to glass and scattered your ashes across the stars. Took a step closer to the table. But that is not what humanity does. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are a species that learned, through centuries of bloody history, what happens when power is used without restraint. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. We have seen the cost of endless war, and we have no desire to inflict that cost on others. The lead diplomat raised his head. His name was N, and he had been chosen to speak for the Dominion because he was one of the few leaders who had argued against attacking humanity in the first place. Now, he found himself facing the consequences of being ignored. "What do you want from us?" he asked. His voice was hollow, empty of hope. Turned to face him directly. "We want partners, not subjects, not slaves, partners." And blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." Admiral Harper stepped forward. "Let me explain. For 60 years, we prepared for this war because we knew it was coming. Some species would eventually decide that humanity was too dangerous to coexist with. We built weapons and ships and strategies that would allow us to win quickly and completely. But we also planned for what would come after." He gestured to the viewport, where the blue curve of Earth was visible against the stars. "We are offering you membership in a new coalition, one led by humanity but not ruled by us. Your civilizations will maintain their independence. Your cultures will be preserved. Your people will be free." He paused. "But you will be our allies. You will trade with us, share technology with us, and stand with us against any threat that emerges in the future." And struggled to process what he was hearing. "You're not going to enslave us after what we tried to do." "No," said, "we're going to show you a better way." She walked to the table and placed a document in front of the alien diplomats. It was the Treaty of Saul, written in 12 languages plus human English. The terms were remarkably generous. No territory would be taken. No reparations would be demanded. The only requirements were peaceful cooperation and mutual defense. "You believed you understood humanity," said. "You studied our wars, our conflicts, our violence. You saw us fighting each other and assumed we would crumble against an external threat. But you missed the most important part of our history." She placed her hands on the table, leaning forward. "When humans fight each other, we hold back. We create rules of warfare. We show mercy to the defeated. We rebuild what we destroy. We do this not because we are weak, but because we know what we are capable of. We have seen our own capacity for destruction, and we choose to restrain ourselves." Admiral Harper nodded. "But when an outside force threatens our existence, when someone tries to exterminate us, those restraints come off. We become something else entirely, something that should never be provoked." The alien diplomats exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was a monster that chose, every single day, to be civilized. And when forced to drop that mask, the results were catastrophic. One by one, the diplomats signed the treaty. The scratching of pens on paper was the only sound in the great hall. When the last signature was complete, straightened and addressed the cameras. "Today marks the beginning of a new era. The species of the former Dominion are now members of the Saul Coalition. Together, we will build something better than any of us could build alone. We will explore the galaxy in peace. We will share knowledge and resources. We will protect each other from any threat that emerges." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a warning that every being in the galaxy understood. "But let this day also serve as a message to any who might consider threatening humanity in the future. We do not start wars. We end them, quickly, completely, and without mercy when necessary. The choice of how we respond is always yours. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended, the treaty was signed, the war was over. In the years that followed, the Saul Coalition grew to include dozens of species. Humanity became the most respected and most feared civilization in the known universe, not because they conquered worlds, but because everyone knew what they could do if provoked. No one ever gave humanity an ultimatum again.